Asian Community Development Council. This is Family in Focus, Mondays at 12 noon on PHLV Radio.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Family in Focus. Hope everyone had a great Christmas holiday and holiday season, staying safe out there. This podcast, again, is brought to you by the Asian Community Development Council, ACDC. My name is Patrania Poonswan. Thank you so much for being with us on this podcast today. Well, today I want to introduce you to two women, two great organizations helping with an effort here in Southern Nevada. It's been an issue for a long time when you're talking about domestic violence victims, about human trafficking victims. These two organizations have been on the front line of this. And I want to first introduce you to Minddie Lloyd. She is the co-founder and executive director of Bamboo Bridges. And also we have with us today Robyn Gerber-Garcia, who's the executive director and co-founder of an organization, a nonprofit as well, called Worth Fighting for LV. So thank you so much to both of you. I know you're both friends as well and been collaborating for a long time. So thank you for your time and joining me on this holiday week. I think it's holiday for a lot of people, but we want to make sure we get the word out there about this organization because, you know, when it comes to this issue of domestic violence victims, human trafficking victims, this issue does not go away, not during the holiday anyway. So let's start first with Minddie. And Minddie, I've talked with you before on this show, but I really want to hone in on Bamboo Bridges. This organization, I know people come into Southern Nevada, move in all the time. They may not have heard of Bamboo Bridges and what your nonprofit is all about. So Minddie, I'll let you introduce yourself and also talk to us about your organization.
So Bamboo Bridges was started in 2008 by a group of friends and women's in my group. And we noticed that there is nothing out there that catered to Asian women. And that were affected by domestic violence and trafficking. And a lot of people think that trafficking is just, you know, that involves sex trafficking. There's so much that revolves that on how it becomes to that point to where you as a human is getting traded into the business of either sold into slavery or sold into the sex industry. And we focused a lot about domestic violence as well, because that is just part of the world that people don't understand. And we started out by walking up and down Chinatown, checking out all of the massage parlor industries. And, you know, we were able to find a lot of women that were hiding in there, and that was affecting their life in there. So that it's just nice to see a lot of friends that are willing to share something in their heart to save and rescue a lot of our teens that are affected by that.
And you said you started this back in 2008, and at the time, how did you even, you know, got around to thinking, okay, this is an issue, and I know Asian American women are being affected, but we're not seeing or hearing enough of it. What was the thing that triggered it for you to start this organization and got out there and do the work?
Well, a lot of it was on the massage parlor. A lot of our families that were coming in from either China, Korea, or the Philippines, you know, countries from like that, they come here, and because they're not able to get jobs, or for one instance, I will share you a story. We had one woman that had come in from China, and to pay back that cost of her getting here to our country in the USA, she has to pay that back, you know, so that that debt. And so she was working in the massage parlors. And we all know massage parlors, there's a lot of them that are legitimate, but there are some that are illegitimate. And a lot of the women were in there. And a lot of our politicians didn't believe that that existed. And so we proved it to ourselves, saying, yes, this still exists. And it still exists today. It's just they're able to get around it more, you know, get around law enforcement and to bypass a lot of the stuff that it wouldn't trigger or bring. It doesn't attract that they're doing something that they shouldn't be doing.
And with Bamboo Bridges, you're aiming and raising awareness, especially with Asian American women who I'm sure have those cultural, language, all kinds of barriers, right? That they weren't able to maybe get help even if they wanted to at the time.
Oh, a lot. Yes.
Yeah. And you were
Yeah.
there as leading this effort where you felt like as a woman, as maybe a person of color, someone who's Asian American, you felt like you can make that connection to these
Right.
women.
Yes. And then we also went to San Francisco and California because, we have a very high rate of Asian descent that live in San Francisco and that were going through the same thing. And so we said, you know what? And then we checked out Chicago and New York and especially Texas. And
Mhm.
so when we felt that we were just focusing on Asian women and that's not no longer. So now we focused on the Hispanics and then just in everyone. We don't discriminate
Mhm.
because we know that kids of any color are being trafficked and it's disturbing that the
Mhm.
numbers is rising and that there are so many organizations that's trying to help and rescue, but that number is still high at Petrogna.
And I know, a big part of what you do and how you launch this is you want this to be a community effort, right? It's not just your group. You want to make sure you reach out to other groups. And I think that's how you and Robyn came together. So Robyn, I wanted to bring you into the conversation here. You're the co-founder and executive director of Worth Fighting for LV. So tell me a little bit about your group and how you even came together and got to work with Minddie.
Well, thank you so much for having me today. And Minddie, thank you also. I know that we've been friends over the years, and I just love the title of your Family in Focus. And I think that's basically where we started. Our family really matters to us. They matter, I think of my grandchildren. I have 7 grandchildren, 4 of whom are girls, and I want to make them aware of what's going on. So basically, about 20 years ago, the co-founder and I, we were praying for. She was really praying for somebody living in Las Vegas. We know there's prostitution. We know there's people that have been trafficked. We didn't call them trafficked back then. And so she prayed. We had one girl that we actually came into our church. She was loaded. She had just had a friend that had killed herself and she was distraught. And so we really, counseled her, not personally. We brought her to a professional therapist and just befriended her and kind of walked through the journey of life. Matter of fact, 2 weeks ago, I had lunch with her, and it's neat to see after 20 years the progress. And, she's totally come out of that lifestyle and totally, an upstanding insurance agent doing incredible work here in Las Vegas. So after seeing the torment that she had from that one friend dying, she would bring in friend by friend that were, that would be in the industry, and she would want them. You got to help these girls. You got to help these girls. So it went from 1 girl to 20. We had a support group and we would just love on them, encourage them, and get them the professional help that they needed. Mm-hmm. And I don't know about you, I go to counseling periodically, and it's not cheap. It was like $150 an hour. And so we found a group here in town that the therapist would actually work at reduced rates and provide therapy to these girls. And so through their, process of being trafficked, I mean, there's so many different things, mental, they're, maybe drugged and mind control and different things that they go through. And so to unravel and untangle all those different parts, it causes years and years of therapy. So we, that's basically what we would do. Mm-hmm. And so every September we would have a fashion show to raise money to pay for these victims or survivors. And I met Minddie years ago at one of them, and she had a table of, all kinds of dignitaries, including herself. And, she was there in force and just to support. And it was, to me, it makes me cry because it just, I love the fact that she is somebody who collaborates. It's not like, oh, this is Bamboo Bridges. We're not helping, anybody else. We're just helping the Asian. She's like, okay, what can we do together? And literally has supported Worth Fighting for financially for over over the last few years. And I'm personally grateful. I know that the survivors are grateful because I can't do everything. Worth fighting for can't do everything. She can't do everything. But when we come together, we become a force. Yeah. And so we know in our heart, we have bigger dreams and bigger plans. I don't think we'll share those today, but we have some things that we want to do to create a village to where things will definitely change. And statistically, it says 1 in 5 children will be sexually solicited before they turn 18 years old. And that is devastating. And those could be our children. And usually between the ages of 12 and 14 is that's usually when they enter into the sex trade in the U.S. I want to see those statistics change. I know Minddie wants to see those statistics change. So if we could do it together, we're like, let's do it. And so that's basically how we came about, years ago. And then also traveling nationwide. I remember being in Switzerland, and I had never seen this. You know how we have the mannequins in the mall? They actually had live mannequins that were girls that were basically selling their bodies in downtown Geneva. And I was like, oh my goodness, this is crazy. So we just basically, that's basically how we started.
Yeah. So in terms of, your nonprofit, you really focus in on that peer support, right? That counseling and being there for these, a lot of times young women to get out of that cycle and to be able to see that there's a world out there for them.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. Yeah. I would
and
say
that, and this problem, obviously you said the statistics, since you started until now, you said 20 years ago, have you seen things improve in a better way because of organizations like yours and Minddie? Are there things that you say, okay, we've done something right, things are looking up in some ways?
I would say, I think it's more well known now. We're hearing the Epstein trial, the Epstein trials that were going on, the trial of Giselle,
his partner. Yeah. So people are speaking out more about it, and it's becoming more accepted that this is not what is supposed to be happening, right?
Correct. And so that's the positive I see. I see that people are actually, instead of being called prostitutes, they're actually being called, they were trafficked. They were put into a situation where, oh no, we did not want to sell our bodies. We were actually brainwashed into this, thinking that this is the only way that I could actually make money, or this is, their mind control was changed so much, their mind shifted so much that they really have no value. They really have no personal worth. And that's one of the things that we're doing is we're fighting for their worth. We all have value. You're a valuable person. It doesn't matter, your background that you come from. Yeah. And that's one of the things that I think Bamboo Bridges also does. No matter what, every person is valuable. Yeah. You're breathing, you're valuable. And so we want to bring value back and integrity into the women. And so that's really, really important to us. And then getting the word out. Awareness is huge because some parents don't even know. They don't even know how to, like just last week, I got a phone call from somebody that was working on the Strip, and there was a girl that was working in her place, and one of her co-employees was basically saying, hey, I can pay you more in one night by taking these kind of pictures than you can get in a whole month working here. And so I was like, oh my gosh. And so when I was talking to this friend, I said, who have you told this to? And they go, we've been talking to Minddie Lloyd with Bamboo Bridges. And I was like, yes. I go, you know what? The lady is a pro. She knows what to do. I said, follow her direction and her advice. And if Minddie needs to bring me in, she will. And I'll just be praying from the sidelines. And so
that's wonderful. And Minddie, we've been, when I was reporting, we got to talking, Minddie, a lot about your work and what you've done. But for people who are brand new to this town, you know, especially families and maybe people from the Asian American community. You know, language is still an issue. And I know organizations like ACDC has really stepped in to kind of raise awareness and even let people know about organizations like Bamboo Bridges that's out there. What kind of challenges are you still facing even today after you've been doing this work for so many years that you're still trying to kind of cross over and make sure that you know your voices are heard and what you're doing is getting out there?
So for me, the challenge is still when we even speak to the Asian community, you know, there are still the generation that wants you to stay silent. Silence is not okay when it involves body, exploiting yourself, and I'm going to explain to you a story. So Asian families are very, you know, well educated, you know, and they just expect so much from their children. So they tell them, hey, you know, you need to go to school. Hey, you need to do this. And then when a tragedy happens into that household where they need to tell them, hey, you need to go to work, right? But still education is on the forefront. Mm-hmm. So what do you think that, I'm talking about a female, that daughter is thinking, oh, dad just told me I had to go to work, but I still have to upkeep with my school. Mm-hmm. So when she's at school, all she's thinking about is how dad just yelled at her because, you know, the house is so messy and you better keep your grades up. And while she's at school, she's thinking, well, shoot, I'm supposed to go to work. I have to earn some money. And so kids around the school are saying, oh, you know, this is how I got my money. Mm. So they run away. So this one girl I'm going to tell you about, she ran away from home because she just couldn't keep up with dad's bullshit anymore. And so she runs away, meets up with other people, and she's thinking, oh, how is this life so easier when I'm at home and not paying rent? So meets up with kids saying, oh, this is how you make money. And it turns into sex trafficking. Mm. You know, and then it involves you getting into a relationship with a man, which is now becomes domestic violence, because when you have a relationship, now the courts look at it as if, well, they're in a relationship. Mm-hmm. So that is my struggle, because our system is still broken. Mm-hmm. You know, the resources that we have that is out there, it's difficult because no one wants to tell their story all over again. But for kids, we want to try to save them while they're at, you know, 5th grade stage. Because even 5th graders, they're learning about their bodies and how wonderful what my body can do. But when somebody approaches you and thinks it's okay to just violate you, and that's our problem.
And Minddie, you know, with this whole, you know, social media taking over the world, I'm sure that's kind of added to the problems that you've seen in terms of probably the predators looking for victims in that way as well, right?
Oh, a lot, because you know, I mean, you and I, we've done things as teenagers before. I remember it was just, how can I do a bubblegum contest? Now it's like, how can I twerk better? How can I make my ass look more plumpier? How can I get plumpy lips? Which is okay. Those things that beautify you, it's okay. Mm-hmm. But people that are looking at you the wrong way, it's not okay. Mm-hmm. And I think, I don't know if I've ever told you this story. I had a mom, she was a registered nurse. Mm-hmm. She exploited and sold her daughter and had sex with men for 75 grand a night, 75 grand per person, and times 10, Petrania, that's a lot of money. And that went all to the mom. And she's a registered nurse, and she's 14. And when she had sex, she would rip. You know, you and I as women, you know, we take care of our bodies. Before a young girl like that, mom was sewing her back up, and then would give her rest. Yeah. You know, people that are viewing this right now that might think, oh my God, that's just so disgusting. No, it's real. It's happening. And some of our girls that are getting raped, they have nowhere to turn because one, they feel, oh my God, I just ran away from home. I don't know how to get back to my mom and my dad.
Mm-hmm.
So they just stay out in the streets until they get to their adulthood. And when they're an adult, nobody cares, Petrania.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point, you're just messed up as heck.
Yeah.
You know, and then they have kids and it goes down line to their kids. So
Yeah.
it's a lot of mental illness, you know, and you and I talk about, you know, shelters.
Mm-hmm.
And during the pandemic, we sent a woman to the shelter just so that she had someplace to be safe.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, that wasn't good because she was discriminated at being an Asian woman in there. And people that were in there were just giving her a hard time because of the pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I wouldn't be in here if because of you and what your country.
So that whole
brought.
discrimination extended to this realm as well.
Right. So we have to pull her out. And you know, and here's the sad thing about some of our shelters is that the shelters are great, but we have such a big homeless problem of homelessness that some of our homelessness, they need a different attention. But because, you know, we're just trying to get them off the streets,
Mm-hmm.
some of our people that we're bringing in there, they work.
You can open all the bedroom doors.
They just have a problem that just happened at their home.
Mm-hmm.
And they need to get back into their independence. So, and it was really hard because this lady, she did not work, but she was told, oh, you know what, this is what I did.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of our prostitution are being housed inside the shelters, and then they leave, and then they stand in line to get back in there.
Mm-hmm.
But you know what, they're teaching other ladies how to make quicker money.
Yeah.
So they're adding problems on top of their problems.
It sounds like such a cycle. And Robyn, I know you've worked, you know, with Minddie and with other groups, and you've seen this happening. What are you doing right now? What are you looking forward to doing in 2022 to, you know, hopefully not just help raise awareness that this is happening still, but really making some, you know, proactive and something that will make real change come next year?
A couple things that we're doing is we're obviously awareness going into the schools and working with some of the different organizations. But one of the other things that we're doing is survivor care. And
Mm-hmm.
that's really, really important. Minddie talks about mental health, and Nevada is the 51st state with the highest situations of mental sickness, illness. And then we have the lowest actually care for mental illness is basically what she was. That's a true statistic. You can't change it. And so mental health care is really important. We've partnered with a group, Beyond Therapy, here in town. And so if they connect with us, we get them, you know, put in there as well. And the other thing that we're doing is, I lost my train of thought. Sorry, my bug man just walked in the door.
No worries.
We want to get all the bugs out of the house.
It's a live podcast. But no, I think it's great. And you're talking about survivor care and especially mental health. We've talked in this podcast about not just in the Asian American community, but, you know, overall, it's still something, you know, people don't talk about as much, is not getting out there. And I think having what your nonprofit is doing, what Bamboo Bridges are doing, just kind of bringing these issues to light, I think are very important.
The other thing I was going to say is we also, we launched it during the pandemic, so we have to relaunch it because it was a flop because we couldn't get together. Is basically we have, it's called Worth the Fight, and it is a training program that is developed to basically equip its self-defense, self-awareness. And so we're actually working with some instructors that are trained and certified by the Las Vegas Metro Police Department. And so we want to get people in those classes. And so it flopped last year just because we couldn't gather together. So we're going to relaunch, and it's really important to train people how, it's an 8-week class to train them how to really fight for themselves if they happen to be in a situation where they're, you know, brought into.
And I think that's a real connection there, right? Between feeling physically strong and feeling mentally strong and having the resources to help them with that. And if people want to find more information about organization, Robyn, where can they go?
They can go to worthfightingforlv.org. You can look at us online. We have Facebook, and we also have Instagram. So those are different ways you can connect with us.
That's great. That's great. Well, and then Minddie, for Bamboo Bridges, I know bamboobridges.org is your website. You've done a lot of work. You get out there in the community. I see you at so many of these Asian American Pacific Islander events out there. You're getting the word out there, and you have big plans for 2022. What do you want to accomplish come next year?
Our shelter, to open the shelter. So excited for that.
And this is shelter for just Asian American women, or open to all?
To open to all families affected by domestic violence and those affected by that are trafficked.
And obviously you need community support, right? And you're looking for that right now as well.
And money, lots of money.
Right? I mean, all nonprofits out there, of course, you need the community support. But both of you coming on the show today and helping to get the word out, to see that these problems are real. You know, we see this in movies and shows, but you know, the real life situations I know are probably so much worse than what we see. So thank you so much for sharing your stories and of all the work that you've done over the years for women of all races, of all color. I mean, we're all affected, right? So thank you so much for all you do. And of course, for people to reach out and support both of your organizations, we'll put that information up there for you as well. So thanks again to Robyn Gerber-Garcia, the Executive Director and Co-Founder of Worth Fighting For LV, and also to Minddie Lloyd, Co-Founder and also Executive Director of Bamboo Bridges. Thank you for all you do and for being on the show today.
Thank you.
Thank
so
you.
Much.
Thank you.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you. Yeah, all the best in 2022. And thank you so much, everyone, for watching this Family in Focus podcast. And we'll see you again very soon. Have a great day.